All right, so now we have Sophie sliding around, and the next step will be to replace the sliding with actual animations. So there's two animations we're going to need. One for when Sophie is standing still, and one for when Sophie is moving. So the standing still animation will be what's called an idle animation. So I'm going to go back to Mixamo, and here's where you can really sort of see how many animations are here. So I'm just going to search idle, and there are many. And I'm going to pick one that's relatively basic here. So like I'm not really making like a fighting game, so that's not really right. This is just looks like there's almost no motion. There is some, but almost none. This one kind of looks like it will work, like a regular person standing. So this one I think I'm going to go with. So a couple things. Well, we'll see more of this when we choose an animation where the character's actually moving, but some of these animations have adjustments you can make, which is kind of neat. So like I could make the characters, like if it's a bigger character, it needs, since these animations work for different models, you may need to like play with some of these, or you can adjust the speed, things like this. I'm going to reset this back. I think the default was fine in my case, but it's pretty cool to play with this and have this possibility. It doesn't look like I properly reset that. So once you've found the one that you want to use for idle, when the player's just standing there, we will go ahead and choose download. And here is where I guess I'll click the Unity thing again. Still don't really know what the difference for that is. I should have looked it up. Sorry. And with skin means it'll come with the Sophie model, which will work. And it might work easier, but it's a bigger download and it'll take more file size up. Like if you are committing it to GitHub, it'll hit your quota harder. So I'm going to choose without skin, which will also work. I'll show you the slight complication it adds. We'll go ahead and choose 60 frames a second, and then I will choose download. So here's the settings I'm going to use for all my animations. You can use different settings. This is just what we're going to pick for this tutorial. I'm going to download this thing, and oh, I got logged out. Oops, one sec. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll download it and I will put it in the game so you won't get logged out, assuming you've been using Mixamo recently. Alright, so I've got the thing downloaded for real this time, and I'm going to go into Unity. I'm going to go into my assets. I'm going to find my animations folder, and I'm going to make a new folder. And we could do this a couple ways. We could either name this folder like human animations because they would work for multiple humans, or maybe we're not going to be able to reuse these and they're just going to apply specifically to Sophie. That's up to you in your particular game and how many uses you want it for these animations. So I'm going to drag the animation in here, and if you expand it, you'll see there's this idle animation in it. And if you select it, you see it's like difficult to preview. This is a side effect of choosing no skin. But it's going to save you like hundreds of megabytes to not have the skin. And we already have the player model, the Sophie model here to use for the skin. So what I'll do is I'll just drag it into this preview. Oh, that's actually not working. Let me go to animation. All right, here we go. So let me kind of go over this again so that's not so confusing. I've got my animation selected in the project window, right after I dragged it in. There's no model to preview, so I have to drag a model I want to use for the preview in. And assuming it's a compatible model, which all the things on Mixamo should work together, you'll get a preview. And so now I can hit play, and it's working. And so you can see, these FBX files can hold multiple animations. Sometimes I've seen when you download them, they'll say mixamo.com here instead of the name of the animation, which can be frustrating. Maybe that's actually something that's different if you use the FBX for Unity. That actually might be part of what's different. So that's a +1 to using the FBX for Unity file format when you selected download. Makes sense, I guess. But anyway, when we hit play here, we can see it's working. Now, one thing we're going to need to do is the player can stand around like for an indefinite amount of time. So we need to make sure we choose loop time for this animation. And after I've checked that, you have to choose apply to kind of save the change. So this way the animation will loop. I think that might be all of the changes I need to make. Again, if you don't see the animation options here, just make sure you have animation selected here. FBXs can have all sorts of stuff in them, so make sure you're on the right tab that we're dealing with here for animations. And then now let's go ahead and hook this up. So if I look at my player, I want to see if my player has an animator on it, and I don't think it does. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new animation controller to use for my character. So first step is let's add the animator component to this player game object I have here. And so it needs an animation controller, which is sort of the state machine for the animations. So I'm going to go back to my animations folder here, find Sophie, and I'm going to right click here and create a new animation controller, which should be listed in here somewhere. There it is. And I'm just going to call this, again, you could either call it Sophie animation controller, or you could call it humanoid animation controller or character animation controller. It just depends on what you plan on using this particular controller for. You can reuse animation controllers if you have multiple characters that are going to use the same animations, which is nice. I went ahead and named it Sophie because I only have Sophie in this game and I have no idea what I'm going to add, and I don't want to create vague names for uncertain decisions I'm going to make possibly in the future. But you might have a clear idea of where you're going with your project. So now that I've got that animator made, I'm going to go ahead and drag the that new animation controller in. So I can just drag it in wherever it was at the bottom down there. You know what I should have done? You can also click this little target thing, and I only have 2 animation controllers in this whole project, so it wouldn't have been difficult to find it. Alright, so now that I've got that, if I open my animation window here, or I'm sorry, the animator window, which I have up here, we don't actually need the animation window because we're not going to be making animations, we're just using the ones from Mixamo. So anyway, the animator window, if you don't have it, you can go to Window, Animation, and then choose Animator. And this is our little animation controller state machine view here. It's like a flowchart. And what you can do is actually grab the animations and drag them in. So because this is named what I actually want this state to be called, it makes a lot of sense to just drag that clip right in there. So remember, you kind of have to, well, I bet I can drag this whole thing in and it'll still say idle. Yeah. The reason it says idle and not character2_non-bridge blah, blah, blah at idle is because the clip, again, the clip here is actually called idle. So if you select this thing and you look at the animation tab and you see the clips, it's called idle. All right. So I dragged it in and it's just basically set up exactly how I want. As soon as we start the game or this object loads, it's going to go into its default state, which is going to be the first one I dragged in, and it'll play the idle animation. So if I hit play now, we'll go from the T-pose to the idle animation, which I guess I can drag the animator down here so you can kind of see the preview. As long as you have the game object with the animator selected there, I think this will work. So it's not working. I wonder what I've got wrong. Let's see. So what I think I've done wrong here is I put the animator on this root game object, but the thing that actually is going to animate is the model here. So what I think I need to do is move this component from the root game object that doesn't actually have the model that's going to animate on there to the model game object here. So what I'll do is I'll add an animator here, and I will choose the Sophie animation controller, and I will go ahead and delete the animation controller, or I'm sorry, the animator that was on the player game object. And let's see if that works. So I'm going to select this one, and I've got the animator on there, and we'll hit play and we'll just see what happens. Yeah, now she's animating correctly. Well, she's playing the idle animation correctly, that is, and you can see the preview here in the animator. That should work as long as you have the thing that has that animator selected in the hierarchy. So this is working. I'm going to stop this video here, and in the next video we will get Sophie to actually appear to move instead of sliding around in her idle animation. All right. Oh, before I forget, let's go ahead and make a commit. We will say added idle animation and anim controller. And I'll go ahead and save my scene and save my project. So file, save, and save project, which is important to save the project for the animation controller stuff for sure. All right, so now you can see we got everything listed. I'll go ahead and commit it and push, and I'll see you in the next video.